Indie Mogul.
KickAss got its ass kicked at the box office this weekend, and that has such huge implications for both the comic book industry and the movie industry that this situation deserves its own movie math. I'm going to discuss the box office numbers, possible reasons nobody saw this movie, what it means for both industries, and I'm going to give you my review. So let's get started. Just like last weekend, it's another photo finish for the #1 spot at the box office. Right now, it looks like How to Train Your Dragon in its 4th weekend has come in at #1 with 20 million, while KickAss has opened at #2 with 19.75. Congrats to Jake Stolz, who totally called it on Wednesday. You see, weekend box office numbers are based on estimates, and the real numbers don't come in until Monday. But don't get your hopes up too high, KickAss fans, because those estimates are usually correct or off by just a smidge. This looks really bad for KickAss. It was unable to open at #1 despite no direct competition, and it can't even point to strong foreign box office where it's already in its 3rd weekend of release. KickAss failed to match the debuts of similar films, Kill Bill or Sin City, and those movies never made it to 100 million, which means there's no way KickAss will make it either. Thankfully, the movie only cost 30 million to make, but Lionsgate certainly spent a lot of money on advertising. And maybe the silver lining will be DVD sales and rentals. But bottom line, KickAss bet on being a huge hit and was cast in that light by its creators, its distributors, and its fans. And it failed. So if fans felt this movie was going to be a big hit, where the hell were they opening weekend? Well, on Beyond the Trailer this Friday, I had Ted Alexander on the show from Midtown Comics, and he had an interesting theory. See, Lionsgate had so many early screenings for this film in hopes it would get the word out that they might have accidentally let their core audience see it for free. Thus, that core audience didn't show up opening weekend to give KickAss the buzzworthy opening it so desperately needed to fuel the rest of its theatrical run. Because if KickAss had done very well at the box office this weekend, people who didn't see it might have thought, maybe I should. But now their initial thoughts are confirmed that the movie is no big deal, and they're likely to either wait for DVD or skip it entirely. But I also feel that KickAss had some other issues working against it. First of all, it's rated R. And I know that in order to stay faithful to the comic, it had to be. This is where you need to ask yourself what's more important, staying 100% true to the comic or bringing it down just a bit so that the movie will be a success. I mean, the Punisher is the only other comic book character on the silver screen killing criminals instead of apprehending them, and his box office numbers suck too. Maybe the swearing didn't need to go as far as it did. I imagine the C word uttered by Hit Girl kept out a lot of people who would have been totally okay with the F word and the S word. Also, I think KickAss missed a huge opportunity by not including an African-American or Latino superhero as well. That is a huge movie-going audience that drove Fast and Furious to a huge debut last year. But in KickAss, you basically have a bunch of white people killing a bunch of African-American and Hispanic criminals. What do you think? Would including such a superhero have helped the film? Hollywood is doing a huge I told you so right now. None of the studios would finance this movie as is, and none but Lionsgate would distribute it once it was finished. Matthew Vaughn had hoped to make them regret that decision, but it looks like they know their audience. Problem is, next time talent, especially comic book talent, tells Hollywood to trust them, Hollywood will point to KickAss as a reason not to. Sure, Batman, Iron Man, and all the other marquee superheroes will continue to make big bucks at the box office, and they'll be good movies too, just as they have been. But what about the indie comic books? If Scott Pilgrim fails, and that movie's got to be plenty scared right now, will another indie comic ever make it to the silver screen at all, much less intact? Furthermore, will filmmakers in Hollywood ever trust fanboy hype again? This is a colossal letdown after the huge reaction at San Diego Comic-Con last year, and on the message boards that went crazy across the internet as each new trailer and picture was released. Have fanboys, and thus, in some ways, audiences, been hurt by KickAss's failure as well? It's a possibility.
Hey, Indie Mogul, this is James Lee Films, and you're watching a 10-second trailer to my new short, Desolate.
KickAss deserves to do better at the box office. For me, I was intrigued by it, but didn't really start to enjoy the movie until Hit Girl rescues Big Daddy and KickAss toward the end. It was there that it really came to life for me as real people fighting real criminals in a realistic way, with real fear but also real bravery. Big Daddy's death scene as he fights through the pain to help his daughter defeat the D'Amico thugs because, after all, she's still a kid in training, was powerful, powerful stuff. It was one of the most moving death scenes I've ever seen in a movie, and overall, the cast in this movie is really excellent. Superb, in fact. But up until that point in the movie, I felt the story lacked direction. And what I mean by that is that this movie had all the right elements but failed to execute them. Just like when I was watching Watchmen last year, I saw brilliant ideas on screen that never quite got off the ground. The naive yet incredible kindness of KickAss, just wanting to do the right thing. Big Daddy raising Hit Girl so that she'll never be a victim like he or her mother were. Red Mist trying so desperately to be a part of his father's business, yet not fully understanding the gravity of what his father does. The brilliant father-child relationships of all three of the kid superheroes. Even the idea that we're watching the creation of a real-life superhero-supervillain society that could have been, but now probably won't, be explored in a sequel. This is amazing stuff that should have been explored more deeply. And I don't even think a lot of these things were in the comic. Vaughn and his screenwriting partner Jane Goldman actually took the comic book and made it better. And then when Vaughn went to direct the film, he focused mainly on the violence and adrenaline that the comic book champions. This movie could have been more, which is frustrating to me, because both Kick-Ass and Watchmen are examples of how sophisticated comic books have become, and yet they fall short as movies. This is now two missed opportunities to show non-comic book readers just how good comic books can be. And I know that some people don't like my Watchmen and Kick-Ass comparison, but the movies are alike in both their brilliance and their faults. I would give Kick-Ass an 8, and it's its own fault it's not a 10.
Subscribe, comment, rate it.